Hey, hi everybody! I hope you're all having a good day. I hope you're all smiling and enjoying your lovely day. In this following tutorial, I'm going to be teaching you guys on how to make shape keys inside of Blender, otherwise known as blend shapes or facial animation or whatever the heck, basically. There's different names you can call shape keys. There's way too many names, honestly. Maya calls it blend shapes, Source Filmmaker calls them flex animations, and then there's too many names, honestly. It's annoying, but I'm just gonna call them blend shapes, but Blender calls it shape keys. You can name it however you want, as long as you know that it's literally just a slider that moves the vertices around. That's basically what they are. So that's what we're going to be doing today, and I'll be showing you how to make that inside of Blender. Now, I'll be demonstrating with a Void Beta model, which I nicknamed TestChan, so say hello to TestChan right here. And hopefully this model will help you out, especially for those who are having troubles with making expressions for your own Void model or just any basic model. Hopefully this model will help you out, at least understand on making blend shapes and such. But either way, I will say as well, before attempting this tutorial, you need to have basic knowledge of Blender. So you need to understand, what the G key is, the S key, R key. You need to have basically just basic understanding of the Blender UI. You don't have to know everything like the shading, the animation, rendering, all that. You don't have to know that. You just need to know how to do basic navigation, basically, which I have a tutorial on my Dumbify Blender series. If you wish to check that out, I would recommend please do so. Otherwise, you can check out many other Blender tutorials that go over the basics of Blender before attempting this, just to avoid any confusion and stress. We don't want stress here. So please just remember that. And also, just because I'm using a Void model does not mean this doesn't apply to a from scratch or a boost model or some other model, basically. This can apply to any model as long as you know how to apply your knowledge. Taking the knowledge I'm giving you and applying it to your specific situation. If by any chance you have troubles with applying your knowledge, let me know. I'd be happy to share a tutorial on how to apply knowledge. Or if you need extra help, feel free to just contact me. I'll put my socials here. But again, it's very important you do know how to apply your knowledge. But either way though, with that being said, and in case you're wondering how I got the Void model in here, I use a VRM Blender add-on. You just make sure you install it. I'll put in the description below on how to install the plugin, so that way you can get things started with your Void model and all that. And again, it'll be pretty easy to set up, so don't panic. It's okay. Don't worry. But either way though, let's go ahead and get started. So the first thing we need to do is make sure our model's here, which we have step number 1 complete. Our model is here. Now the next step, of course, and also I just want to make sure you guys are aware there is a mouse viewer right here as well, in case you ever get confused on what the heck I'm doing. But the next thing though is that we are going to make sure we look into our Shapekeys tab, or actually our object data properties. So it should be right here, the little triangle here. You're going to make sure that it's selected, and you're going to go to where it says Shapekeys. For Blender, it's Shapekeys. Maya, we call it Blend Shapes. Even VRM models, they call it Blend Shapes. I typically use Blend Shapes as it's more commonly mentioned, but again, it depends. As long as you know they're the same thing, that's all that matters. But basically though, when it comes to Shapekeys or Blend Shapes, basically I just want to show you at least the basic navigation with these settings, and then I'll show you how to make them basically. So first of all, we have to start off with our bases. Now the bases here, this is basically our neutral expression. This is basically what allows Blender or any other program to make sure that the face you see right here, this is the face that stays neutral. And if you were to, let's say, make a slider from 0 to 1 here, so if you have something like this, basically this will allow to make sure that you're able to change the expression from, let's say, neutral to angry, which is very good. And of course, you can be able to revert back to its normal state. So that's very important to have the bases. If you by any chance delete the bases, basically, then whatever blend shape is or shape keys on the top right here will basically become its new basis, which is not really what you want, especially if you have other expressions, unless you prefer something like a different expression being your neutral, which I'll show you how to properly do that. But basically it's best to just keep this top one as basis, stay safe, make sure that your model doesn't break or any weird stuff like that. But either way though, With that being said, you also then have your other expressions here. You can make as many as you like. You can make 200, 500, 1000, how many ever you need or want. It's better to have extras, but of course it depends on the purpose of the model, so just keep that in mind. But you can have as many expressions. For this void model, there is the basic VRM blend shapes. There's different combinations of it, split up and all that. There's the air kit blend shapes I made for it, and then there's the vibe loop tracker, eye and mouse. Well, there's a vibe tracker, mouse and eye blend shapes there as well. So basically there are a handful of some expressions here, basically. And it's not limited to just having the basic, just the entire face being emotive. It can also be individual parts. So it can be whether the eye only is moving like this, or the eyebrow is the only thing moving, or even just the mouse itself doing like a shape and such. So you could do any different type of combinations, and it's not limited to the face, by the way. You can even do it to your body as well. So let's say if you want, I don't know, a blend shape to make your chest bigger, you can do that. Bigger thighs, boom. Or bigger feet, boom. Boost models tend to do this a lot. So in case you're wondering how boost models are able to change their body proportions, it's all because of the shape keys, or otherwise known as blend shapes. I'm just gonna say it like that because I really want to make sure no one's confused. But either way, shape keys and such, blend shapes, they basically, that's what boost models tend to use, so they can change their proportions. And same with other certain MMD models. They call it morphs, basically, but they kind of do the same principle depending on the model. There are some models that do that. So you can change proportions and make it into a different character and all that. But either way, though, besides these expressions here, the other thing as well, which I will mention, so you can actually change the slider here as well. So instead of it just being here, you can also change it here as well. You can even change the min and maximum. I usually would recommend this for more advanced users if you so wish to actually like make negative blend shapes and all that. For VTubing, I wouldn't recommend making negative blend shapes, as VRM itself doesn't really support it. If you're doing it for iPhone blend shapes, to a certain degree, if you have something like Face Motion 3D, you could probably utilize negative blend shapes, or just negative values of the blend shape. However, I would not recommend it if you're a VTuber. If you're a bit more advanced with 3D, I would it just kind of depends on your usage with it. That's all I can really say. I see Dot Studio models use this quite a lot, though. So there's that. But you can set it to a negative value, and you can have a bit more control. Like, you can do this, basically. Which, honestly, could be pretty nice if you want to basically have even more control of your blend shapes and such. Really depends, but either way, I'll just leave it the way it was, but I just wanted to show that in case you may want it. Again, if you're a VTuber, I wouldn't really recommend it for raw VRM. However, there are possible ways you can utilize it, but then again, I would probably recommend it for a little bit more advanced stuff rather than VRM and such. But it's better to just leave it the way it is like this and just make extra blend shapes. It's perfectly fine, don't worry. But either way, though, you can also set vertex groups as well if you want, like, certain controls. There's that. I don't really use this as much, but I will mention vertex groups are very useful for masking and such. So, if necessary, you could utilize it to control, like, certain vertices and how they move and all that. But either way, I don't really use them a lot, but they can be really great for just keeping more control of your character. But again, when you start exporting it out to like FBX and all that, sometimes extra controls may end up breaking, so keep that in mind, but it should be fine. But either way, you can add and remove an expression just by pressing the plus button up here. So you can either add an extra blend shape here, or you can delete it with the minus key here. You can even move around your blend shapes in case you want a specific order. So if you want one area to be the tongue and one area to be the mouth, you can move it around here. Sadly, at least from what I know, there's probably a way of doing this, but I think probably was the batch editor in Blender, if I'm correct, but you can't really just select multiple shape keys and move them around. I'm sure there's a way of it, but at least on the top of my head, I don't really can remember that. But either way, there's that. Now, there's also the checkboxes right here as well. Basically, what this does is kind of like, it's like a toggle visibility for the expression. So if you want to like hide an expression for a temporary amount of time, you can hide it. Otherwise, you can keep it on. Usually, I hardly use this, but this could be pretty useful for certain stuff. Like, I don't know, when you're animating and you want to hide a certain, blend shape and such, that can definitely be useful for that if you so desire. But either way though, then there's also the thumbtack button right here. This basically allows you to pin your blend shape so that way you can toggle it much faster, which I personally use this so many times with my ARKit blend shapes and even just my normal blend shapes, because it allows me to basically quickly go over which blend shapes are broken, which needs to be fixed and all that. So if you are trying to hunt down any blend shape bugs, then I recommend use a thumbtack. But remember to turn it off and on. Don't have it on the entire time, because there's going to be times you're going to have to do some mixing and such. But basically, though, the other thing as well, let's say, for example, you're going to go into edit mode, for instance, and let's say you want to edit a particular blend shape, but the thing is, when you're editing that particular blend shape, you also see the error happening on another blend shape, like when you mix mouse down and up, you see an issue or something like that. Then I would recommend clicking on this button right here, the shape key edit mode here. That way, this will allow you to actually be able to not only edit your shape keys, but also see them mix at the same time, so you can fix your issues, basically. Now, keep in mind, though, that as well, when you're making shape keys, not every single blend shape you'll make will mix together. A lot can mix, of course, but there's going to be times, let's say for instance, I'm going to do blinking left with the widening, the eye wide, and then I'm going to do, I don't know, I look down and then I look left, and basically, let's just say you're going to do multiple blend shapes, for instance. There's going to be times where there are going to be some mixing issues. Now, this really just, again, depends on what the blend shapes are, how you're making and such, but there's going to be times where certain blend shapes may not be able to mix properly, and that's okay. If a certain blend shape is supposed to mix, like let's say the mouse, for instance, the mouse, typically you'll definitely gonna have to mix that quite a lot more than the eyes, but there's gonna probably be certain blend shapes that may not mix well together, so keep that in mind. It doesn't have to be super perfect, but at least try your best to make it mixable, but it doesn't have to always use a full value. Again, if it's for VRM, it may depend. Like VTubers, it depends. If it's more for like animation or other stuff, you can, of course, you don't have to use a value 1 all the time. You could use a value like 0.5, 0.7, or 1 point or something. It just depends on the usage. I will mention. Again, I can't explain for every single scenario, but all I can say is just be careful with the blend shapes. Don't panic if certain blend shapes may not mix properly. You can try your best to fix it, but if by any chance certain blend shape refuse to fix, don't put too much stress on it, basically. Unless some blend shapes are mandatory to mix, but please don't stress yourself out. But either way, though, so what we have here as well, we're going to go over these settings here before we get into quickly just some quick navigation on some techniques I use on the blend shapes. I just want to make sure you understand this UI first, because these tools, these little buttons here, will help you out. So let's say, for instance, there's an expression, right? So let's say we want surprise and we want our eyes to be closed. Let's say we're going to mix multiple blend shapes together. And let's say we want this to be an expression. We mix multiple blend shapes here and we want to make this one our new one. Let's say. How are we going to do that? So we're going to go to this arrow here and we're going to click on new shape from mix. And that will allow us to create a new expression. Now let's say also, if by any chance you let's say you don't want to manually turn off every single blend shape here. Let's say you want to turn them off at the turn all of them off at the same time, just press this X button right here and it will turn off the values for the shape keys and reset it, which is pretty nice. Very useful. I use this quite a lot as well, so highly recommend. And there you go. See, you have a new expression here based on the pre-existing blend shapes you have. So there's that one. Another thing as well is you can also mirror shape key and mirror shape key with topology. Typically, I actually just use the mirror shape key, and that's about it. Topology tends to bug out on me a lot. If you're especially a VR model, there's a chance this could work, but then there's also the chance that mirroring, your model mirroring may break as well. So usually it'll be harder for a VR model depending on the model. So if it's a void model, you'll have some mirroring, but you'll still have a bit of a broken mirroring. There's ways of fixing it, but that's not what this tutorial is for though. But I'm just giving a heads up. If you're like this, it just really depends on the model. It could be a from scratch, a boost model. Sometimes the mirroring will break if you're VRM and such. And sometimes there could be cases where you can make your model from scratch, and even then, sometimes your mirroring will still break and all that. It tends to happen. I would probably recommend remirroring the model if possible. If not, then you can always try doing it manually, or you could just utilize edit mode and the snap symmetry and all that, which I could show a little bit later. But just saying, heads up on the mirroring shape key, but it's very useful. I tend to use this quite a lot, especially with, you know, I don't really use this too much on iPhone blend shape. I use this more for the Vive Live Tracker stuff, basically. Now, there's also join as shapes. In case you're wondering what the heck does join as shapes mean, this is basically something that it kind of depends on what I'm using it for, but there's times where, let's say, this is kind of like what Maya users do. Some people may not do this. I've done it before with, like, whenever I'm modeling something extra and I'm trying to keep a certain expression, if I'm trying to keep a certain expression, like, how do I put this, like, I can't really describe it. It's like when I make a, let's say like I'm trying to make a face shadow emote and it's a separate mesh and I want to make sure that the placement I originally had it is consistent, I would utilize the join shapes and such. It's a little it's not really complicated, it's just really hard to explain it. But let's say for instance I have, let's say I have two expressions, right? I separate the faces because this is also, like I said, this is a technique my users tend to use, which is, it's not bad. It's actually pretty useful. I use it too. Not always, but I tend to use this. But basically, let's say I want these two expressions and I want these two to go into this face here as their own blend shapes. So what I'll do is I'll select these you know, faces here, then I'll select this face here, I'm going to click on the arrow here, then I'm going to click on join as shapes, and basically you'll see that these, or at least, yeah, the other two blend shapes should work, but then again though, I'm just basically demonstrating it. If for some reason it's not working here, I'm pretty sure it's because these are blend shapes and such, I guess. But I'm pretty sure if they were on the basis, I'm sure that they will actually work, but just like showing you basically, because usually it'll work on me basically. But again, just wanted to at least demonstrate it just to get you an idea of it, even if it doesn't work on my end, or at least in this tutorial, at least just letting you know it usually will work. Just, I would say make sure to make sure that if you're gonna do that, make sure they're on a basis key, but then again, it's kind of unnecessary. It just depends on what you're doing it for. But either way, but there's that one. There's also transfer shape key as well. I don't really use this, but again, it's quite similar to join as shapes. Pretty similar, but different. I don't really use this option though. There's also delete all shape keys, so if by any chance I want to make a duplicate of the face and again do the whole, like if I want to do the join shapes and such more properly and all that, then I would just delete the shapes here, delete all shapes, and boom, it's all cleared up. So there's that. Then there's also apply all shape keys as well, which is basically where, let's say, I don't know, let's say I have some blend shape here, and then I apply all shapes, it'll basically make sure that whatever blend shapes, you know, if they were set to 1, they'll be the default face. But then again, there's going to be another technique though that I'll show you very soon on how you can make sure that, let's say, instead of doing that, so if you want, let's say, this face to be permanent or something, there's another way of doing it while making sure your blend shapes stay intact. So there's that, but either way, just showing a little bit more. Then of course there's these move top, there's move top to move bottom, kind of like how PMX Editor sort of has it. There's create duplicate for editing and all that, and then all these extra stuff here basically. I don't really use these options honestly, so you could ignore these. These could be beneficial to you, but honestly I don't really use these options, hardly do. But either way, there's that. And also, if by any chance you are animating, heads up, you can animate with these values here. Just click and you can register keyframes for this. But we're not doing animation stuff here. Just want to mention in case you are going to be doing animation. And in case anyone's wondering, there is also the relative and you know, this relative toggle here. Usually I rather just keep it as relative, especially if you're just doing this for like VTubing and all that, like just adding VTuber, I guess, blend shapes. But really I would keep this on. You could probably utilize this, of course, if you want a bit more control and all that. But again, I rather keep it on relative the entire time, unless you're gonna do it for advanced purposes. But yeah, there's that. But either way though, that should pretty much cover at least the basics of the shape keys and such, or blend shapes basically. Now, I'm going to quickly show you some techniques on some editing that you can utilize. And again, this really depends on the expression you want. So it's better that you pre-plan the expressions you want. If you can go on Google, you can go on Google, look up like anime expressions or human expression or just expressions, and look up references that will definitely help you out. So you can better understand, like, okay, so these are some expressions I can do and all that, or what you may like. You can mix and match them all however you want. But either way, so let's say we want to make some expression, some random one. So if you're going to make like some expression, there are some stuff that you can do. So for instance, you should know your basic navigation. In case you don't know how to get to edit mode, I press the tab key here. Otherwise, you could just go object mode and edit, which many people tend to do that a lot. I use tab because it's faster. But basically, you can be able to select vertices if you so desire. I usually use the circle tool to help me out with the C key. Again, please check out my Dumbify Blender series if you want to see what kind of tools I personally use and all that. But either way, you can use the G key, the S key, the R key to rotate and move vertices around. The vertices, if you move them around, will help you out on achieving certain expressions and such, if you so desire. And in case you're wondering how the heck do I have this circle here, I use a proportional tool edit. If by any chance, I've been getting this quite a lot. A lot of people kept saying that whenever they start enabling the proportional tool edit, they don't see the circle at all. In fact, they'll see it like this basically. Please remember that a lot of times by default, the circle tends to be pretty big like this. So please make sure you use your scroll wheel. I'm scrolling upward. Basically, I'm taking my index finger from the bottom of the scroll wheel and moving it upward to make it smaller. If you want to make it bigger, go from top to bottom and boom. Just wanted to make sure that was said. And if by any chance, if you are struggling to even turn on the proportional tool, make sure you double check to make sure it's either on connected only or unconnected, depending. If it still doesn't work, there is an alternative as well called sculpting. If that doesn't work, then you're going to have to manually edit the vertices, which is not good, which I would recommend maybe reinstall Blender, see if that helps and such. But again, it should work. You are free to always contact the Blender peeps if there's any issues with it, because there is Blender forums where they go over like bug reports and such. I would recommend, I'll put in the description if you wish to report a bug about Blender. You know, they have forums for that. But basically though, you should be able to make expressions and stuff. Like if I want to make my eyes smaller, for instance, I can be able to select my vertices right here. and I could be able to scale it downward. So I'll disable the proportional tool edit and then scale this downward. I can copy these values here, and then I can select these, S key, scale it down, copy the numbers here that I did for the other eye, and boom, you just got some small eyes, and the nose is moving upward. See? You just made your first expression. Again, you could do even more with this, but that was just some basic edit mode stuff that you could do. You can even do some live mirroring stuff by pressing the X button, but again, sometimes even with that, you may experience some issues. Like, you see how Test Chan here, even though I have the X button on, it does not mirror to the other side. This model, sadly, is not really perfectly mirrored. Vory models tend to never be perfectly mirrored. You can even see right here, not perfectly mirrored. Even if you move this to be perfectly here, it may still have issues. You could use mirror modifier and all of that, but then again, that'll be a bit of some advanced stuff basically. But either way, just wanted to at least mention that. You can even, this is actually where I could also get into, you can snap to symmetry. So let's say if I want to take the forehead for instance, I'm going to go into bases. Make sure you also keep in mind too, before you do any, if you want to make like an edit to your model and it's supposed to be like your main edit, please make sure to remember to go to basis. If you edit your model, like let's say I want to make my eyes bigger and I'm on the fun expression, you're going to probably break the model. So please remember, if you want to do permanent edits, go on basis and make your edits. Otherwise, you're going to break a blend shape and you're not going to like it. And make sure you also save as well so you don't break anything and such. But either way though, let's say I want these vertices here. I'm going to go into, let's see here. I'm going to go in mesh. You can either go to symmetrize or snap to symmetry. Symmetrize usually means you're going to take a mesh and you're going to mirror to the other side. Physically, I usually would not do that unless otherwise. I personally would use a mirror modifier if I want to do that, but honestly, that's really, some people would use it. Sometimes I use it sometimes, but not always. Then there's snap to symmetry, which will allow it to snap in place, so that way you can see how it's more mirrored basically. Now do keep in mind, don't just don't just do this and snap to symmetry. Sometimes it can actually be a little funky, as you can see here. It'll work the entire time, but there's going to be some vertices that may not follow, so take your time with it. And again, I would probably recommend mirror modifier and such. But either way, again, just be careful with the model is all I can say. But either way though, just wanted to at least mention how you can do a quick mirror, but you may have to do some more advanced stuff. Again, 3D is not easy. I'm trying my best to make it as easy as it can be, but it can get very complicated. But either way though, besides that, let's say you want to do something a little bit more advanced. Oh yeah, I also want to mention before I get into sculpting, by the way, void models or just any VRM model, they tend to create doubles. In case you don't know what doubles are, doubles mean basically two vertices that overlap each other in the exact same position, but they're not merged, therefore it's just going to cause rip and tears on the model. Many times VRM, because it's from, I don't know why it does this. It's kind of dumb, but basically VR models, when you import VR model back into Blender, it's going to cause doubles. Even if you're a from scratch model, it happens on my model too. And I made my model from scratch, and yet it still has tears when I re-import the VRM file. So usually for VR models, especially void models, they are, they're suspectable or subjected. Some word like that. Some word that means they are going to have this issue, basically. Now, for Test Chan, and especially in my AirKit tutorial, I've already covered how to merge the vertices. But to show you quickly, let's say, especially the teeth, for instance, you're going to have to go to M and merge by distance. Make sure you're on the basis key again. Do not... Well, actually, technically for me, especially because I don't want to merge the mouse together, it's okay as long as you are careful with it. But I can go to the joy key, press M, merge by distance, and it'll be fine. And then I go to Alt N and reset vector so the shadows look normal. And I have to do it to the face, the teeth, the tongue, and even the ears as well. But luckily for Test-chan, I've already merged those vertices and cleaned it up. But for probably your model, you're gonna have to do that to avoid rip and tears. Oh yeah, and one last thing too while I'm at it, just to quickly show you as well about the mouth opening for edit mode. I'm trying my best to show you every single explanation on Shapekey stuff, but basically, let's say you want to make your mouth open more. So you probably are having a hard time opening your mouth, let's say, on your Shapekeys or Blendshapes. Like, you can make it smile and such, you know, but it's like, how do I make this thing open the mouth easier? Well, just make sure you have this set to connected only, then move some vertices down, and boom, you just opened your mouth, basically. And just move these vertices around, basically. See? Something like that. Look, you just made your first mouth open key, and it's so much easy. But do remember as well, again, if you have connected only off, and you were to move the teeth, right, or something like that, remember it's also going to move the inside of your mouth. Same applies to your eyes. So I would recommend, depending on the edit you're doing, please make sure that you hide. So Control L and then the H key to hide it, and then Alt H if you're going to unhide it. So please make sure you do, like, if you're going to do some mouth blend shapes first, hide the inside mouth. And then when you're done with the lips, then finalize your mouth blend shapes by unhiding the inside and just, you know, adding your corrections. Same applies to the eyes too. If I'm gonna do some eye related blend shapes and such, I would just hide the eyes here, like that, and then move it around. For the eyes though, especially with roid models, because the eyelashes are not merge with the eye socket, you're probably gonna have to definitely, you can't really use connected only. You could if you want to, but it's probably gonna have some weird stuff going on if you're not careful, that is. So do take your time though, basically. It will take a bit, it's gonna take some time getting it to look good, but you know, you can try your best basically. So it takes time to do it. Also, if you have something hidden, by the way, it'll still appear when you get out of edit mode. So just saying that right now, by the way. So I'll go ahead and unhide it, but I'm just wanted to at least show you that. Now let's go over our sculpting. Now yes, you can use the sculpt brushes to make your blend shapes much more easier to set up, which is a good thing. So let's say for instance, I don't know, let's say I want to make the mouth, and again, I recommend please make sure that you hide the inside of your mouth. This can apply to, again, this applies to sculpting mode as well. Hide the inside of your mouth basically. And as you're sculpting it, those will be hidden unless you do Alt H. But basically though, let's say you could do stuff like you can make something bigger like cheek puff, or you can shape the mouth better and all that. There's different ways you can use these tools. Primarily, I use the draw brush here. I use the draw sharp if I'm trying to make something smaller. I use smooth to smooth the vertices out. Sometimes I use flatten, but not always. I use a grab for the mouth and such, and there may be some others I might use, but for the most part, I primarily use those four sculpt brushes for the blend shapes and such. So let's say, for instance, when it comes to this expression, remember, you have to have the blend shape be set to 1 if you want to see it. You can also, of course, mix it. So if you want tongue roll with your tongue or something like that, I don't know. Yeah, have 2 different blend shapes at the same time. Yes, you can do that as well. Just make sure you know which blend shape you're editing, otherwise you're probably gonna make a mistake. I usually typically, again, if it's about AirKit blend shapes, I have a tutorial that goes over AirKit blend shapes, and then I had another tutorial on how to make Vive lip tracker stuff. But there is the thumbtack here, basically, and basically, what you're going to do with the thumbtack, this is where you can actually be able to utilize the sculpting. So if I want to make something like my cheek go bigger, usually I make sure the X button is enabled here, and then I could do something like make the cheek puff bigger or something like that. And of course I would utilize solid mode to help me out get the shaping right, like that. And then, select the thumbtack to be off, and then I could just do the slider here. So you can do something like that, basically. You can also have it where as well, you can even deflate it, which is the draw sharp, if you want that. Or if you want to like make something smaller, that if you want to make it so that way it's smoothing out, you can use a shift key, shift and then select to smooth it, and boom. So there's that. Just wanted to like show you what you could utilize the brushes for. And then you also have grab, which you can be able to grab the face and such. So you can make something smile more easily, or you can make something frown more easily and all that, or you could do, I don't know, a cat mouse or something like that. I don't know, it depends on what you want to do basically. But either way, you can utilize the sculpt brushes to help you out making even more accurate blend shapes. And I recommend this if you're doing ARKit or Vibe Tracker blend shapes, because this can help so much making sure that your blend shapes are much better mixed and such. So yeah, and I could do something weird like this basically, haha. But either way though, pretty much you can be able to basically just do that. And it also doesn't have to apply to just the blend shape as well. You can even, of course, use it to sculpt your main face as well, basically. So that's another cool thing you can do. If you want to make, I don't know, your face more wider by default, just make sure you have bases on it. You can make your face more wider and all of that. So there's that. Whichever you want. I don't, it doesn't matter. Yeah, you can do weird stuff like that. But either way, and of course, remember as well that you have your radius, so you can make your brush bigger, or you can make the strength more stronger or lighter. Usually I tend to have it more lighter, like about, for smooth, it'll be 0.1 or 0.2. Depends on the size of the model, but it helps making sure that I gradually get there rather than being instant, so I have more control and such. You can otherwise check out the other settings and all that. I won't really go over it as I really don't use them, but there's those. And one last thing also, just to make sure that you're good. The last thing is, let's say for example, let's say I want by default my eyebrows to be angry. Let's say that I want to be my default. How can I do that properly but also keep my blend shapes intact? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to go to edit mode, select your model right here, Control V. You're going to go to blend from shape, and you're going to go find the expression that you want. Again, you can utilize the other tools I told you about, like new shape from mix and stuff, make a new blend shape that has your new face type that you want, and then you go here to shape, find the expression that it is. Let's say I want the angry eyebrows here, and I usually would have it where I deselect add. The only time I use add is if I'm adding onto the thing, like if I actually want to mix it. Otherwise, if I disable add, it'll basically be like, it'll override it basically. And you can utilize the blend here as well, so you can make the values smaller, higher, and all that. So that's another thing too. And therefore you can have that as your default basically, where the default is the angry, yet you can still keep the blend shape itself if you want. So there's that cool thing as well basically. Now, of course, as well, another cool thing too, one last thing I promise you. Let's say, for example, we are editing our blend shape or something, like jaw open. And let's say, for instance, this is not what we want and we want to reset it. So how do we reset the blend shape to be the default so we can redo it? So you can do Control V, blend from shape, and you can go click on bases, make sure add is disabled, and you can actually have it so your expression is resetted, and you can remake the blend shape if you so desire. I tend to do this quite a lot with my models. If I mess up something, usually I could delete it, but then again, it's faster for me to just do that. So yeah. But pretty much though, in a nutshell, that's basically my explanation of not only the UI here of Shapekeys, but also my techniques, the tools I use and such on how to do the Shapekey stuff. And again, you have to take this knowledge and apply it to the expressions you want. It really just depends on the expressions you want. You can check out other models, like void models are good if you want to get an idea of what expressions that you can make with them. You can Google references and such, but I just wanted to make this tutorial to show you guys the different tools and the options that you have on how you can make blend shapes and expressions, so you can better understand what you can do. And again, if you still have any troubles with Blender, at least on the shape keys and stuff, feel free to contact me on my socials down here and such. Let me know if you have questions. You can comment it down if you desire. Usually if you have a specific issue on your model, I would recommend add me on Discord or at me on Twitter or something, some social media, and that way I could be able to see your issue a lot more better. But even then, I'll try my best to answer as many questions as possible. If you have any recommendations for tutorials, then please let me know. I will do my very best to make any tutorial that is requested and such. And yeah, that should pretty much be it for me. I hope that this tutorial helps you out. And, well, hika sayonara everyone. I hope to see you guys next time, okay?